Hello everybody, I wanted to do a little video to show you how you can retack your scan and cut mat. Now, I got Brother to agree a few years ago, Brother UK especially, that you can use stencil glue from Pinflair. It's made specifically to retack, to put a low tack on the back of your stencil, so if you're working on a wall or a different surface, you've got some stability while you're putting your paint or your mediums through. But it also works really well for lengthening the life of your mats, because as good as mats are, a company that sells a tacky mat for a digital cutting machine can never get it perfect, because you want it to last it forever, I want it to last forever, and it just can't, because every time you put a piece of card on and take it off, it leaves fibres behind. If they make it tackier, you can't get the card off, and if they don't make it tackier, they don't last long enough. So the solution is to use the stencil glue from Pinflair. You will need a bottle of the glue, and it's a really inexpensive product and it will last you a long time. You need a plastic bag, maybe like an old cello bag, something like that, and you just need a cheap kitchen sponge, so it's got the scrubby bit on one side and the foam on the other. So the reason that I'm showing you this is twofold. First of all, for card, you just want a very thin layer. So the process of putting it out there and applying it to the mat is the same. We're then going to do a video about cutting grey board. Now, grey board is a different beast completely, because when you're cutting something that's thick and dense, you need to go very carefully with it, because you don't want to put too much force on so it twists the mat or it moves the grey board, because you have to do multiple cuts. So we want to make sure that our mat is sticky enough to hold that grey board in place while the machine moves it in and out and does the cutting for you. So for regular cardstock, I would say probably you need about that much glue. And I would rather you retacked it more often than put too much on and get your product stuck to the mat. For grey board, I'm going to ask you to double that amount. And the reason that we can do this over the adhesive that's already embedded into the mat is because this is a different kind of sticky. The mats are sticky when you get them. This makes them tacky. Okay, and there is a big difference when you're cutting something that's weighty like grey board. You'd also do this for things like your Fleur's flower forming foam, anything that's not stable. And it's a really good way of just, like I say, getting more use out of your mats. So I'm just going to add a little bit more onto there for our grey board. So this is, as you can see, an oldish mat. There's probably thousands of cuts on this mat already, but it doesn't matter. Please make sure before you start using your stencil glue that you scrape any excess bits of card off your mat. And if it's really bad, run it under a cold tap. Use your scraper. We sell these on the Highlight Crafts website. This is brilliant, much better than the one that they put in the box. And this will help to get all the bits off and then leave your mat to air dry. We've already gone ahead with that process, so I'm now going to take my kitchen sponge and I'm going to bring this plastic back in so that you can see what I do. So I'm going to take the spongy side and I'm just going to pounce it over this adhesive. So I'm getting a really nice thin layer distributed across my sponge. Okay, you don't want big lumpy bits and blobs here and there. You want it to be nice and evenly distributed. Now, Brother would suggest, and if you can do this, please do so, that you cut the gridded area here out of an old mat. And you use this part as a mask to mask off this part of the mat, because if you get glue here or here, it's going to affect the rollers that take the mat in, and we don't want that. So it's important that you only ever stay within this black square. Then I'm going to take my sponge and I'm going to start at the top, and I'm just going to go along in a straight line, and I'm literally just pressing that sponge gently down like this. And then I'm going to get to this end and I'm just going to line the edge of the sponge up and just make sure I'm not going into that black area. If you do, like I have there, wipe it off immediately. Okay, and this glue is really unusual, because if you look now, it's not sticky at all. But as soon as it gets exposed to the air, look, it starts to go sticky. So you want to get that off as soon as you possibly can. I'm then going to just keep going horizontally across my mat a little bit at a time, making sure that I'm putting a nice even distribution of that glue down. And when you get to kind of halfway down, go back to your plastic, pick up some more of that glue, and then continue on the next part of your mat. Don't worry if some areas have got more than others, because we're going to sort that out in a minute. You'll know when you need a new mat because you'll feel the mat. Very much like a die cutting plate, it gets cut lines into it. But unlike a die cutting plate, the more you cut into the mat, so the more you use it, those cut lines will weaken the plastic of the mat. And you'll find that eventually your mat's just really floppy. That's when you know you need to change your mat. Also, there's like a gridded strip on the back of the mat. It's very gentle. It feels like a very fine grade sandpaper, and that allows the rollers to grip on there. Eventually that grip will get worn down. So you still will need to buy new mats, but maybe not as often because of the stickiness. So once we've got this laid down, all I'm going to do is start at the top, and I'm just going to drag that sponge down, and I'm working really methodically. And this is the best way to do it. Don't just do random bits here and there, just work methodically. It only takes a few minutes, it doesn't take long at all. And then the most important, crucial thing is that you leave this to go off. Okay, so right now, it's not sticky at all. All it's doing is putting glue on my fingers, but you can see it's starting to get tacky, okay? So I'm going to leave this to one side, and then we'll come back in a little while and I'll show you how sticky it's become. And it's perfect for retacking new scan and cut mats. Doesn't matter whether it's a low tack one or a standard one, it's a really good way of lengthening that usability of that mat.